Welcome to another edition of TM3 Impact. Today, I have Anthony Cosby, the founder of STZY. I cannot wait to get into this podcast, and let's jump right in. Anthony, welcome to TM3 Impact.
Thanks so much, Tomas. Thank you for having me. Looking forward to this amazing conversation today.
Yes, me too. You know, we got to hang out on Saturday, and I got to hear a little bit of your story. And then I looked at my dad, and I go, Dad, this is going to be a good podcast. This is going to be a really good podcast. So let's jump right in. Tell me, Anthony, your San Antonio story, Cliff Note version. How did you come to live in this amazing city?
Yeah, certainly. So when I was getting ready to transfer, I was still on active duty in the Navy. I was stationed at the Naval Academy, so I had been there for 3 years, working for Admiral Remp, who was the superintendent, so in charge of the Naval Academy. Amazing years at the Naval Academy. We beat Army so many times. So,
you had to get that in there. I know.
Yeah, because we don't beat them now. But I had an amazing time there. But when it was time to go, I was either going to go to Pentagon, just right over across the street, go to the Pentagon, or I was going to do a recruiting tour. Now, by nature, I'm an introvert, so you would never think of it when I'm out doing my job, but I'm an introvert, and I said, let me go do recruiting, and let me go carry the bag for about 18 months, and then let me go to the headquarters and run it. And that's how I came to San Antonio. Had never been to Texas before. So they gave me about 8 choices, and one was actually San Juan, Puerto Rico.
Oh, interesting.
It was. And
okay.
And I did do Puerto Rico because I'm like, well, I really don't speak Spanish too well, right? And then I get to Texas and everybody's speaking Spanish.
You're like, okay, here we go. You know, the most Puerto Ricans live in San Antonio.
I know.
Out of all the other cities, there's more Puerto Ricans here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's how I came here.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So the military, once again, brought you and your family to San Antonio. That's fantastic. All right, so let's go back. I'm thinking, here you are, entrepreneur, starting the STZY. Let's go back and young Anthony, I'm talking like 17, 18. Were there any entrepreneurs in your family? Was there any seed that was planted early on for this?
Yeah, no, I love that question because I think now, as I look back, my granddad was a bootlegger. So in North Alabama, Dry County, my granddad was a bootlegger. And every Sunday, the sheriff of the county would come to my granddad's house to get his little Budweiser and his little nip. And I was the one that would run and go grab the Budweiser. He would tip me a quarter. So when I saw my granddad and just grinding, doing what he had to do to survive, he was born in 1901. And when he passed, he was 82, and I was in 2nd or 3rd grade. But he and we bonded really, really well. And so as I continued to hear his story, as I became an adult, that 17, 18-year-old, and started understanding his story, and now as an entrepreneur, I was like, this man was an entrepreneur.
He was.
Providing for his family. Yeah, it probably was bootlegging, but he also did cotton as well. There were quite a few black cotton farmers in the little area that I live in. And so he had cotton fields as well. So we worked out there, and, he didn't raise any lazy kids. So all his grandkids were pretty much, we were athletes. We loved what we did. We didn't know what we were missing. If we were missing the bright lights of the city, we just knew that we had family, and we knew he was our protector.
Yeah, and so what city was this in?
Yeah, so this was in a little town called Tanner, Alabama. So 20 miles west of Huntsville, Alabama. So Space Center and all those things. Okay,
interesting. So what do you think when you look back on that time? You think about your grandpa. What were the lessons that you could kind of, like, if you were to kind of write that book that he taught you in what he was doing, from a business standpoint? What do you remember?
Respect the grind.
Yes.
Respect the grind. Because one thing I would say now is, as an entrepreneur, and I take this biblical too, because every day you're going to have a challenge with something.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think every day is going to be peaches and roses as an entrepreneur, you're wrong. Yeah. And just like how Mark Cuban says, if you're an entrepreneur and your back has never been against the wall,
that's so true.
And so for me, those are some of the things I took from my granddad, because I know there was times when his back was against the wall. I know those were times when he had to grind, because he had 6 girls. My mom was one of 6 girls. So
no, he had no sons.
No sons.
No sons. Okay.
No sons. And I think that's why he took to me really. I remember I got to stay with him because I cried at daycare, and I wouldn't stop crying. I think I cried for like 5 hours straight, and next thing you know, Granddad said, "Bring that boy to me." And next thing you know, I was 3 years old on his lap driving the tractor with him. So
wow, you still remember this?
I do.
It's interesting. My dad grew up in Puerto Rico. He's Puerto Rican, and he still has memories of being 2, 3, 4 years. I'm like, how do you have those memories? They're like ingrained. I always think that's really interesting, but I also think, we were distracted just like the kids of today. I was distracted. We had TV. My dad grew up. They were outside, and you had to be immersed, and so those memories stick. I think more because of that.
Oh yeah,
right.
I definitely believe that, because now as I think back, especially not having a full life with him. For me being an adult and knowing what he did, and I really respect everything that he was doing for the family even more. And just me being his offspring, to me, it's one of those opportunities where when I think about my granddad as a bootlegger in a dry county running moonshine, he had his own recipe, and I've asked for that. Nobody has it.
Nobody has it. Wow, was really it's cool. Lost.
But for him to be doing that, and again, when you have the sheriff at your house on Sundays, nobody's probably going to mess with you. So there's something that he did.
Yeah, he built relationships.
He built relationships.
And
that's entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Okay, so you graduated high school. Were you a sports? Were you a big athlete? I think, was it football? What was your big sport?
So I would say I was band as well.
Yes,
so
that's
trumpet
right.
guy.
Yeah.
But played 3 sports: football, baseball, basketball.
Okay.
Baseball was my favorite sport.
Okay.
And I would tell you, this falls into STZY, because when I was around 12, I pretty much begged my mom and dad to send me to baseball camp at the Atlanta Braves. But my dad worked construction, my mom sold insurance, and they really just couldn't swing it. Yeah. And I always think, man, if I would have went, to that baseball camp, I probably could have picked up something to help me get to that next level. So now when we have these unique opportunities to work with professional athletes and see how kids are able to work with these professional athletes. Sometimes I think you have those little seeds that are just being planted right there, and you're creating that next Michael Jordan or that next Larry Bird. But we want them to be good people while they're elite athletes as well.
100%. I that's one of the things I tell my son is 13, golfer. You met Enzo. We talk about that a lot. Like, if you can hit the ball 320 yards, but you don't have character, and you're just not a good human, I was like, that we haven't done our job. You know what I mean? I was like, we just haven't done our job. I want you to be a good human first, a good person first. Okay, so now you graduate. Now, where did the military come in? Was anybody in your family in the military? Did you have any history?
I did. I had an uncle. Uncle June was in the military.
Okay. Which branch?
So he was in the Army.
Okay.
But the one thing with Uncle June, I remember he had a very bad accident, and he ended up being paralyzed. So.
Oh, wow.
And
in the military?
No,
outside. Okay.
Out the military. But he was the only person that I was connecting with the military.
Okay.
So growing up, I was like, I don't want to do the military.
Yeah.
And then some of my cousins that were a year ahead of me joined the Navy. And I was like, okay, well, they're stepping out a little bit.
Yeah.
And for me, my story is I was 17 years old, and star athlete, weren't getting any offers really. Yeah. I didn't want to go to the community college. We called it 13th grade, and I was working at Hardee's. So after practice, I would go to Hardee's. Yeah. On Saturdays, and Sundays I would work at Hardee's. So worked almost a full-time job going through school, and I didn't want that for my life. I was like, all right, well, I actually called the Army recruiter because I grew up watching Combat, which was an old black and white movie. Grew up watching Combat, called the Army recruiter, and the Army recruiter said, okay, well, come by on Wednesday at 1 o'clock. So my dad took that day off just to take me to the Army recruiter.
Okay.
So he dropped me off in Decatur, Alabama, which was about 20 miles from my house. So when my dad left, for him to come back, I would have to wait for him to get back at home to call him to come back and pick me up.
Yeah.
Because the Army recruiter wasn't there.
Oh, no.
He stood me up. And so the Navy recruiter comes walking out with a yogurt cone, waffle cone. I've never had yogurt. We just had the ice cream that you churn with grandma, you know. He comes out with this waffle cone. He said, hey, we have a yogurt machine.
He got you with some yogurt.
He said, a yogurt machine in the office. He said, he's not coming back. I
Oh,
said,
my
the Army
goodness.
guy's not coming. He said, hey, come on in. Come call your dad. He's not coming back. And so I walked in and he was like, hey, you want some ice cream or yogurt? I said, sure.
Yeah.
So he gave me a yogurt cone. As I'm eating my yogurt cone, he says, you know, in the Navy, we have a bed. Army guys don't have a bed most of the time, you know? And it just stuck with me. Like,
oh, my goodness.
And then I was like, go Navy.
Go Navy. You were sold. It was the waffle cone. Don't lie. You know it was that yogurt and waffle cone. You know that's what it was.
Yeah.
That's a really cool story.
Yeah, so I was 17. My mom and dad had to sign for me to go in.
Did you already graduated at that point? Or you were senior or junior?
Yeah, no, I had already graduated.
So you were a young senior. Okay, that's what it was. Okay,
I started
your birthday
kindergarten when I was 4. So
right.
Essentially.
Okay, so when's your birthday though? Like
November.
November. That's right.
Yeah.
Yep, that makes sense.
So my mom had connections, and I ended up starting way earlier because of daycare.
Yeah.
Because you know, she needed to work and dad needed to work. So can you guys take him? Well, we're going to put him in kindergarten.
You can't wait because now, like most people would, if you're in November or even a September, I was a September 24th, so I had to wait. You know, that makes sense. That makes sense. So you go into the Navy. I can imagine, you know, at some point you end up on the U.S. What was the ship that you were on?
Yep, USS Roosevelt.
The USS Roosevelt. Okay, tell me about that experience, getting to that point where you're on. You did propulsion?
Yeah. So for me to get to that point, you know, I started off as E1. So I went in as enlisted in 1990. And then I was able to have some amazing mentors in my life. And they were like, Anthony, you know, why don't you become an officer? I was like, well, I didn't go to college. I was a decent high school student. They was like, you can do this.
Yeah.
And, you know, I really had one particular officer, Becky Valtier, who was one of the first women to graduate from the Naval Academy. She played point guard. She was one of the first women to go to the Naval Academy, played point guard. Till today, she's my mentor. We talk. Anyway, I told Becky, I want to become an officer. She said, okay, let's get started. Just like that.
Didn't even think twice.
Yeah. So I was stationed in Atlanta, Georgia at the time. I was going to school during lunchtime, after work, on weekends. Yeah. I was able to get 30. I needed 30 credit hours to put in for the officer program. Okay. I got my 30 credit hours in less than 9 months.
Wow.
Just
you were playing.
Rocking and rolling, put in my officer package. And because I was stationed right there in Atlanta, I had the connection with Auburn University. Yeah. So I ended up going to the ROTC unit at Auburn University. And then went through Surface Warfare Officer School, and my first officership was the USS Roosevelt, spanking brand new ship, being built out of Pascagoula, Mississippi, with Ingalls Shipbuilding Company. Every rack had a TV that came down.
Get out.
It was so
Are you serious? No wonder he told that man. Aren't you so glad you got that waffle cone and that Army guy was late? He stood you up. You had your own TV in the bunk. That's crazy. I had no idea it was that nice and plush.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Yeah.
Wow. So what was it like being on that team? You had 28 people that you were working with on this propulsion team.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Those guys were amazing. The one thing I would tell you is that military folks are some of the smartest folks in the world. My guys could take a Rolls-Royce engine apart and put it back together. It was just crazy how intelligent these guys were. And for me, I went to school for public administration, political science. And when they asked me if I wanted to be the engineering officer, I said, of course, you don't say no.
Yeah.
You just, go do the job.
Yeah.
And for me, it was a learning opportunity to learn the propulsion of the ship, the potable water system of the ship, and just how the ship runs, the comfort features, air conditioning, all of that was part of engineering, right?
Yeah.
And if we didn't go, the ship didn't go.
Right.
So it was a very crucial part of the ship. And, I would tell you a quick story that showed you how professional these individuals were. So for our first maiden deployment, we were one of the first ships to go out to sea after 9/11. Okay. And so when we did our cruise, our job was to certify other ships as maritime interdiction operation vessels. So they were able to board ships that they thought might bring harm to U.S. or NATO.
Okay.
So for us, we were in the Mediterranean Sea, and we got emergency tasking to go intercept a high value unit. Didn't know what but we were the only ship. We didn't even have a submarine that could to get to it. We were the only ship
that was close
that
enough.
could have gotten to it, right?
Yeah.
And so we went all engines ahead full, and we knew it was going to be about a 36-hour transit to get there, right? But all engines ahead full is almost like Star Trek and Scotty saying, "I'm giving all I got."
Warp speed. Yeah.
But we had a hot bearing. And a hot bearing on a ship would make a ship go dead in the water.
Oh, wow.
Right? And so we had this hot bearing, and myself and the chief engineer went to talk to the commanding officer. He said, "Hey, what are you guys going to do?" And I said, "Look, we have some very good guys down here. Let me take care of it, and I'll brief you every 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And let's stay full speed. We're not going dead in the water.
Yeah.
We gotta intercept this high value unit.
Complete the mission."
So anyway, myself and two of my senior enlisted guys, called chief petty officers, we slept there.
Yeah.
They brought us our meals, and they babysit that hot bearing for that entire transit.
Wow.
They babysitted that hot bearing for their entire transit. We never went below 32 knots.
Wow.
We were going full speed. Now, when we intercepted the high value target, I was on the prize crew, which meant I got decked out, got all my gear, got my weapon, and the SEALs had embarked already.
Yeah.
So we got on the boat and went over to the high value unit, and our intel officer, along with the Navy SEALs, got all the intel that they needed. And you could tell there was something different about this high value unit. But I was down there babysitting the hot bearing, so I wasn't in the ops intelligence brief. So I got a brief one right before we went. So when we got there, we did everything, and we came back. As we started to move on to our new duties, we had the ops intel brief, and the captain got on the 1MC, which everybody on the ship could hear. Yeah. And he said, "Hey, crew, great job. We're getting ready to at the time, we're getting ready to go to Toulon, France for Cannes Film Festival."
Okay.
So, but he said, "Hey, great job. Of course, told everybody, engineering, great job." He said, "I'm proud of you. We were the only ship that could have intercepted this high value target. And just so you all know how important it is, it was Osama bin Laden's nephew's yacht."
What?
Right after 9/11.
Wow.
And I always say, if we couldn't babysit that hot bearing, if I didn't have those amazing guys to babysit that hot bearing, could we have gotten that intel?
No, yeah, probably not.
So the mission is important.
Yeah.
And that's why I say, those are some of the smartest folks in the world in the military.
Yeah. And was everybody at that point that were they officer or enlisted?
So we had a mixture.
You had a mixture. Okay.
Had a mixture.
Okay. Wow. That's a really crazy story.
Yeah.
That's a crazy story. And I'm sure you have a ton with the military. I know you ended up, because of the way you moved to Texas, is from recruiting. Now I think about an entrepreneur, and I would imagine recruiting really got you, because you said you're an introvert. You mentioned that. I would imagine that has really given you some big ways of how you've brought that into your business right now with STZY. So talk about some of the things that you learned as a recruiter, recruiting these kids to come, talking to them, and then how you've kind of pulled that into what you do today.
No, definitely. I'm glad you said that because in recruiting, we have what we call a marketing operations plan, right? So you had to know your audience. You had to know where your audience was located. You had to build your centers of influence. Of course, you had to know the message that you were going to pitch, and you had to know your product, which in my case was the Navy. Yeah. And I was doing officer recruiting, so my product was officer recruiting, Navy SEAL, pilot, nuclear power officer, those type of jobs. Yeah. So I had to live that every day, but you had to do the pre-work. You had to do the pre-work. You had to find out, what area, what zip codes throughout, because we had half the state of Texas. So from Waco all the way west to Midland, Odessa, all the way south to the Rio Grande Valley. So it was a Navy recruiting district, San Antonio, 250 square miles. Wow. So that was ours. And then we had recruiting district Dallas, that was just right there. Yeah. And then recruiting district Houston, that pretty much just had Houston. Yeah. But for us, we had the bulk of the land mass for Texas. And so for me, one of the things that I wanted to do, of course, being an introvert, I was like, this is a unique opportunity to help change lives. Yeah. Because I, as a 17-year-old from the country in Alabama, I know how the Navy has helped change my life. So I went on at this as, let me tell my story. Yeah. Let me tell my story. Let me tell folks how when I was stationed in Atlanta, I got to see, the 1996 Olympics when I was in Atlanta. I got to go see swimming when I was in Atlanta, the Olympic swimming. I got to see the Atlanta Braves win the World Series in 1995. I got to see David Justice, and I tell all the young guys, and I got to see Halle Berry. So they were like, oh wow. And so I said, so many opportunities that I've had. I got to go to college at Auburn for free. So many opportunities. So I told my story, but I had to know where to tell that story. And I had to make those relationships with the directors for the career services centers at the universities. I had to make those relationships with the honors student body, because I always say, I'm going to go to the smart kids. I'm going to go to the double engineering kids. I'm going to go to the Hispanic professional engineers. That's where I'm going to go to find these smart kids and to push this message and just kind of see who wants to take this message on. And the other thing, it was always activity. Yeah. Making that extra call before you went home, right? Sending that extra email before you went home, right? Or taking that call when you're doing something that you're on the road or whatever, pulling over to take the call. So my goal was to always go above and beyond, because I knew the one thing I always said with recruiting, and for the guys, especially the guys that were in Midland, Odessa, I would tell them, I don't care what you do, make sure you're doing your job, because at the end of the month, I'm going to know if you did your job or not. Right. Because either you're going to have some people that's going to be at the headquarters shipping out, or you're not. Right. And so
it's going to be very obvious.
Right. So the activity was very important. And so as an entrepreneur, you have to make sure you have the right activity. You have to make sure that folks know about who you are, what your product is, what are you trying to do, and what are you about? What is your brand about? Yeah. And I think, every day, those are the things that I encounter. And I look back at recruiting to see how recruiting has prepared me for what I'm doing now, especially just getting to know people and just building relationships and just letting people know I'm Anthony. I'm just genuine Anthony. But I've been blessed with this opportunity to try to build this company and build this brand and impact the lives of young athletes every day, and try to figure out whether your back is up against the wall or whether you have the biggest day you've ever had. as an entrepreneur,
it's gonna be up and down.
You just gotta
right?
take it.
Yeah, you're gonna have those mountains and valleys. I think this is really important for entrepreneurs. So number one, you need a story. Right, you've got to have the story that you want to share, and not that you want to sell. And I think there's a difference, right? It's the story you want to tell, not that you want to sell. And for entrepreneurs so that they know the difference, right? Because a story will naturally sell itself. Mm-hmm. Your life was naturally selling itself, right? What you were doing. And then the other thing is activities. One of the things I like to tell coaching clients that I've had is that you need money-making activities, right? Like what is an activity that's actually going to make money? Now, sometimes there are going to be activities that don't necessarily make money, but they build relationship. And you got to know the difference, So for any entrepreneur that's out there that's listening to this, keep in mind, you need to know the story because it will sell for you. And you need to know your money-making activities and those activities that will build relationships, So you end up in San Antonio, and now I need to know where in the world did the idea, because I'm thinking, were you sitting down one day and go, I want to start a sock company? Yeah, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, where does that idea even come from? What was the genesis, right, that birthed the idea? Because I think about my company, Luxury Realm Magazine. It was started from my wife basically going, we need to create a magazine. And I go, why? Like, who? Like, what do you, this was in 2010. Like, who? No, I mean, print's dead, remember? Print, nobody does print. And so it was birthed from a wife's idea to advertise a builder. She wanted to really promote, how do we promote a builder? We need to start a magazine. And so that was kind of the beginning, and then it just started to grow. How did STZY grow? Like, tell me the birthing story of how you came to this company.
Yeah. So right before COVID, I had just finished up entrepreneurship boot camp at Texas A&M University.
I didn't even know they had it.
Yeah.
That's where I got my master's.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. That's really cool. Yeah, we got some other Aggies in here. I love it. Yeah.
So anyway, was there at McPhering Center for Entrepreneurship and May School of Business. So was there for about 10 days on the ground, but it was like a mini master's class.
Interesting.
There, 30 days of pre-work for the class, and then you just kind of go full in. You have mentors there that's able to help you. My good friend Blake Petty, who's the executive director there, he runs the program, and the folks over there, really put on at Reynolds and Reynolds are big premier sponsors out there, and also the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. Okay. So that's where the funding comes from to do that. But for me, graduated from that class, and I was like, all right, I wanted to do a drop shipping company with military themed apparel, kind of like your Grunt style. And, and I just kind of wanted to. I said, I just want to make 50 or 100K a year doing this, just some residual income and drop shipping to where I don't even manage the inventory, anything.
It does it for you.
Launched it in November of 2019, and lo and behold, what happens in March of 2020? COVID.
Right.
COVID hits, and nothing was coming out of any fulfillment centers, nothing. And so when that happened, I was like, oh.
What was the company called back then?
It was called DILSY, for Drive Like You Stole It.
Okay.
So on the USS Roosevelt, we had this sign that said, Drive Like You Stole It.
Drive Like You Stole It. I love it. I love it.
So anyway, that was the company. And but the one thing that really sold were socks, the printed socks. I was like, that really sold pretty good. And then I was like, you know what? Let me take this a little bit further, because one thing they taught us at A&M was to pivot. Pivot when you have to pivot. And so this was my pivot moment. And, it took about 8 months to build out the 7 SKU collection. It was a small collection. And, working with the manufacturer to get it, back and forth. And once we got what we wanted, launched it. And, I started off with 8,000 units. I told my wife, this is a test, and we'll see if it works. If it doesn't work,
to help entrepreneurs understand this, because manufacturing products it's risky,
Yes.
right? Because you got to not only front the money to come up with the design, you got to front the money to actually make the product, correct?
Yep.
And then you have to get the product, and then you have to ship it. I would imagine that you at this point you've moved away from the drop shipping, maybe having a third party make it, and you weren't the middleman anymore. Now you were the man just doing all three parts, basically.
Right. Correct.
Correct? So you've got to front all this money for 8,000 pieces of product.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to say the number, but I can only imagine that this is not a cheap endeavor.
No, it wasn't cheap. And again, that's why, for even folks that are when relationships are married, they got to know what you're doing. Just like you and your wife started Lux Magazine, you got to know what you're doing.
Yes.
And so I told my wife, I said, look, if it doesn't work, it's not going to hurt that bad.
Yeah.
But if it does work, we might be on to something.
Okay.
So that's kind of how we took it. And,
so you rolled the dice, made your eight. So was this where you made the name? Did you make the name change at this point?
Yep.
And then how did you come up with the name?
Company. At first it was one of the guys that was doing our marketing. He said, hey, STZY would be pretty cool, STZY. Because we were looking at something called Step Weaver. We were like, maybe.
Yeah.
But he said, I think STZY. And
which is kind of like a play on what you had done before. The what was the other one? DZ?
Yeah, Drive Like You Stole It.
Right? It was kind of a play off of that a little bit, right?
Correct.
Okay, gotcha. Keep going.
Correct. And so STZY, and we put the line through it, and it looked good.
Yeah.
It looked
like, let's go.
It looks good. Let's
print
go.
it. Let's go.
So so we printed it. Let's go and started pushing it out.
Yeah.
And when we pushed it out in March of 2021, we sold out in 40 days. And I thought it was going to take 6 months.
Okay, hold on. All right. Who was doing your marketing at that point? Like how did you, because listen, I mean, I understand how the, product business works, right? But to sell out, you said in 40, what was it? 48 days?
40 days.
40 days. You sold out in 40 days. What was the drive? How were you marketing this to get that amount of sales? That's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, when you look at the back end of doing ads, you definitely have some groups that you can piggyback off of, whether it's fitness or athletics, target groups, target segments, those type of things.
Okay.
And then, but we knew where we were going. We knew that we wanted to focus on athletes. We knew that we wanted to focus on folks that are fitness buffs.
Yeah.
We knew who our audience was.
Yeah.
Even before, we pressed go, because we knew that we were focused on young athletes.
Yeah.
That was a big core of it. So we were able to focus on mom and dads of athletes and those type of things. So that was a big push. And then, even now when you look at our photography on our sites and stuff, I mean, it just really captures you and really
it's engaging.
brings you in. And so for us, that's kind of how we did it. And even when you look at from the beginning to where we are now, you can see the evolution of it.
Yeah.
You can see the evolution. And we have so much more to go within that evolution as we continue to push this out. But just like you said, when we first started talking, sometimes when I think, wow, this has only been 2 years.
It's only been 2 years. It's crazy.
I feel like this has been a 5-year project. I feel like that, I've gotten a wet noodle and just, smack you around a little bit, because that's the grind of being an entrepreneur when every day is different,
Yep.
And when you have those wins, you have to celebrate them. Yeah. And even when you have setbacks, you have to figure out how you're going to get past them.
Yeah. So I could imagine manufacturing had to be a growing pain. Just that alone had to be a growing pain. What did you learn with the in that piece, doing the manufacturing? Yeah,
manufacturing was definitely a growing pain, just because when you sell out so quickly, and I think too, for me, at some point in my life, my hope and dream is to become a venture capitalist and help companies grow, especially young companies grow, because I think, as a company, that one thing that is probably, the number one barrier is the access to capital.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
and having that access to capital in our case was very, very limited, just because it was an e-commerce company. It was not a brick and mortar. You kind of get the people's eyebrow when you say, I'm a direct to consumer and I want to apply for X. And they're like, well, do you have a store? No, I don't have a store. We sell in online, right? And I think that is a big part of it, because like in our case, we kept selling out. We couldn't keep up.
That's crazy.
So when you keep selling out, and then when you're dealing with the manufacturer that's going to be a 50, 60-day turnaround.
Yeah, you got the whole shop is empty.
You're like, and then things, you lose your traction a little bit.
Yep.
And so those are the times where, I'm hoping to be in a situation where I can bless entrepreneurs with not only that seed capital, but also the opportunity to help them to whiteboard it and kind of
mentorship
see how we can truly do this. When you look at the Shark Tank, that's one of the big things I think about the Shark Tank, when they bring their teams in to really, because the one thing the Navy taught me is somebody else has done this before.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Somebody else has done this before. And, bringing in somebody that has built, an e-commerce company to scale it to certain heights. And that's why relationships are so important.
Yeah.
So for me, that manufacturing piece and just keeping up, it was a grind. And I think for entrepreneurs, you have to really understand, where you are and at every moment, what type of forecasting do you have?
Yeah.
Right. And what's your bandwidth and those type of things. And then, do you have that product that can run?
Right.
Do you have that product?
The quality that actually people want, they're gonna repeat buy, because that's the key too, right? You've got to have a repeat buying customer, and then you keep adding on to that with new customers. So it sounds like to me that A&M camp was really revolutionary for you. Like, that was groundbreaking. And when I think about the pivot, right, because I think COVID really made a lot of people pivot. And if they didn't pivot, we know what happened, right? So when you think ahead, have you started to see new pivots, and not where you're completely pivoting off, but like maybe different lines, different ideas, different projects, maybe something new that's on the horizon that y'all are thinking about getting into?
Oh yeah, I think that piece is definitely because when you pivot, then you start saying, all right, well, what other buyers will want my product,
right?
And for me, I truly believe the government will want my product, especially being a military guy. I want to be the official sock of the Navy, of the Army, Marine Corps, Space Force, Department of Defense. My wife worked for Homeland Security. I want to be the official sock of Border Patrol agents. Yeah. Right. So when I started thinking about those pivots and where we can go next, I started thinking about those potential clients and customers that we can attract. And that being one entity, but I also want to think about, how can we spice it up a little bit, and how can we make it to where, just kind of blow the mind of folks that have been following us. Because, when we have folks like Joe Musgrove from the San Diego Padres that say, I love your product, or Damian Lillard that has bought from us 3 times. Yeah. When you start having these type of folks that believe in what you're doing and just really love the product, and these are folks of means that can buy whatever they want, right? That you're onto something. Yep. So now let's figure out how to, stay true to what we're doing with the quality, with the comfort, with the mission of giving back to young athletes. Yeah. But let's do that where we can say, all right, guys, you haven't seen anything yet.
That's fun.
Because I think you have to stay fresh.
Oh, 100%.
And, for us, we're going to make it look good, but behind the scenes, it's going to be like, oh,
Right, of course. It's running a business.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always like that, right? And so now I know that growing pain, right? You're going through the growing pain of building something, and what you're doing from a product standpoint, I can only imagine there's a lot of research and development and processing that you're putting into all of that. What keeps everybody focused to make sure that you keep the quality, you put out product, you keep product on the proverbial shelf online? So what keeps everybody focused and driven in the company?
I think for me, the vision, because when you have opportunities to connect with people that don't know anything about your product, and when they connect with you about the product, and they're so excited over socks,
Right.
That's that vision where, all right, let's take this somewhere. I give an example. Cody and I, we had a meeting the other day, and we were able to have this meeting because we were at the Corporate Cup event here in San Antonio. Okay. Because one thing that we're doing now is partnering with San Antonio Sports to be the official sock of San Antonio, if you will.
Yeah.
So we were out there. It was hot as all get out, but we were out there grinding. We were doing buy a sock, give a sock type of deal.
Yeah.
So we can get back to the young athletes and the youth of San Antonio. But anyway, we met some really amazing people, exchanged information and all that. That led to a meeting with the Special Olympics of Texas, right? So, yeah, of course you want to take that meeting. So we were having a meeting with the Special Olympics of Texas, and the one young lady that brokered the meeting, of course, wore the socks, and she was like, they're amazing. Yeah. And, as we're talking, as they're learning our story, again, you were talking about you have to know how to tell your story.
Yes.
As they were learning about our story and what we were doing, at the beginning of the meeting, they asked, what would you want out of this? And, in my mind, I said, I'm in Texas. Well, I would love to be the official sock of Special Olympics of Texas, right? 10 minutes later, the question was asked, you guys are amazing. I love what y'all are doing. How about being the official sock of Special Olympics all over the world?
Wow.
And Cody's probably smiling right now.
Wow. That's impressive. That's amazing.
And so so that's that vision that really helps keep us going. When we're like, all right, we have some new initiatives coming along. We have to get some things in order. Yeah. But when you see the future of what the future could be, and then also within that future, because one of the big things that we say with STZY is product equals purpose. The product, the sock, right? The socks. The purpose, impacting the lives of young athletes to help them reach their goals, dreams, and aspirations. Yeah. So you take this product and use this product to make someone's life better.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Product equals purpose. I love that. When did you come up with that? Had you heard that before? I've never heard that.
No, never heard it before. Came up with it. Our tagline is keep pushing forward. Yeah. But product equals purpose was something that really resonated with me because, again, we're a brand that wants to give back. We're a brand that wants to be recognized for giving. There's so much to go around, especially when you grow and scale as a brand. There's so much to go around. How about using the blessings to help others be blessed?
Yeah, 100%. Well, you were the official sock of our NFL Super Bowl of golf here in San Antonio at TPC, and I'm sporting them right now. I got my no-shows on right now, so I really appreciate that. That was a big hit. The players really loved that, and everybody got a pair of socks. That was really, really cool. And so when you think about if you were to sit down with an entrepreneur right now, from everything you've learned with STZY, even going back to being on the Destroyer that you were on, going through the recruiting phase, and you look at, if you were to sit down across from an entrepreneur and you said, you've got 10 minutes to just kind of talk to them, what do you think would be some of the keys to starting a business that you would want to share?
Okay, that's a good question. All right, first, I'm gonna want them to be relaxed when they talk to me because I'm just a guy.
I love that.
And I think that's important because if their business is successful, they're going to be in front of the Drew Rosenhauses of the world. They're going to be in front of some folks that they probably never thought they were going to be in front of.
Yeah.
So learn how to be relaxed and learn how to have a conversation and learn how to bring things into that conversation that connect.
Yeah.
So if both of you went to A&M, say gig them.
Yeah.
And make them smile.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Learn how to connect.
Build that rapport. I love it.
Building rapport is
Yeah.
so important. Then I want to tell them, I want you to always be standing. Because sometimes in the Navy, as we say, we have fair winds and following seas. But sometimes we have some major hailstorms. But if you're standing during the storm and knowing that there's going to be light, because one thing for sure, I've seen time and time after again, especially during my time in the Mediterranean, is we will have major storms. I mean, you thought the ship was probably going to sink, how bad those storms were, right? But after the storm, it was crystal clear water.
Yeah.
It was amazing. It was almost like you just walk on it. I think in entrepreneurship, it's the same way. There are times where, for whatever reason, you're going to get a storm.
Yeah.
You're going to get a storm. And for me, sometimes I believe those storms toughens you up.
Oh, 100%.
Toughens you up.
100%.
Makes you tough and makes you understand the true blessing, the true gift of being blessed to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And how you're able to handle those times. Yeah. But I want that entrepreneur to always be standing. Right? Yeah. Always be standing. Always be leaning forward. And as our tagline say, keep pushing forward. And then I think that last thing is giving yourself grace. Giving yourself grace.
Okay.
Because I think, and I had to learn this last year. For me, last year was probably the worst year of my life.
Interesting.
Starting off with Omicron.
Yeah.
Running out of inventory because of Omicron. Yeah. Having issues within my team. And putting all that together, on May 27th, my mom died. On May 28th, my older brother died. The next day, while we're making funeral arrangements for my mom.
Wow.
My older brother died, who was a football phenom in Alabama. He passed away at 56, young dude. And running out of inventory because there was no inventory to be made. Yeah. And then just pushing out and then having to change manufacturers with a new product that we made because my manufacturer could not deliver the quality product that I demanded. Yeah. Throw all that into 1 year.
And you packed it all in 1 year.
It was
2021 or 2022?
2022.
Wow.
Packed all that in, and then with dealing with funding and raising capital and all those things, it was a tough year. Yeah. And I think for me, as I'm still here, because one of my mentors told me, just don't quit. Yeah. Just don't quit. Figure out
keep standing.
Figure out a way to keep the lights on.
Right.
Just don't quit.
Right.
And you'll see. He said, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. Just don't quit. Yeah. And as I'm here with you, Tomas, with Rick in the audience, with Cody in the audience, and with the amazing opportunities that we have before us right now, that's why I say keep pushing forward. Yeah. Because it's worth it.
It's worth it. So somebody, I love how Stephanie Newton said this weekend. She said, you might be entering a storm, you might be in the storm, you might be just coming out of the storm, right? Whether we're at, as an entrepreneur, that's going to happen. You're going to be in one of those places. It's just the way life works. And so what would you say to an entrepreneur that's in a storm? What would you to say, to them right now? What would you tell them?
No, I would tell them, again, keep standing.
Yeah.
Hold on to your faith.
Yes.
Hold on to your faith, because for me, throughout all of last year and even this year, two of my favorite words is hope and faith.
Yeah.
Hope and faith. Because I truly believe that hope and faith carries you through.
Yeah.
Carries you through like nothing else can carry you through.
Yeah.
And I believe in the Lord, and the Lord is going to provide everything that you need, even when you think you need something more.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
And just have that hope and faith. And don't give up that hope and faith.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, do not give up your hope and faith.
Yeah.
You have to have it to weather those storms. And it's great to have when you're doing your good times.
Oh, 100%.
You know, because we wanna be that transparent at all times.
Yeah.
We're all gonna go through those storms. We're all gonna go at different points in our lives. We're all gonna go through it.
Yeah.
Right? It's how you handle it, how you conduct yourself, how you continue to hold on to your hope and faith that's going to get you through.
Yeah, I love it. I love that. And so when you think about everything you've read, right? And I would imagine during that program they had you read different books. Was it like a program where you were with professors, or were there books you were reading? Kind of how did they do that program at A&M?
Yeah, no, we actually had a lot of mentors that came through.
Okay.
And we had some of the curriculum that was created by the Institute for Veterans and Military Families at Syracuse University. So, you know, we were able to lean in on that. But I think, you know, our biggest thing was being able to bring in real-time entrepreneurs from College Station that was right there hanging around. That were
living it.
That were billionaires and millionaires living it.
Yeah.
But, you know, wanted to give their time and bless us with some words, or just, you know, one-on-one talks and those type of things.
Yeah, I love that. So is there a book that over the last, you know, maybe during this time, it could be the last 10 years even, that maybe has had an impact on you, that you've read, that you give away? Maybe you give it away to other entrepreneurs, or you're like, man, if there was a book that I've read that I want to make sure that people have read, you know, get in their hands if they're going to be a business owner, this is the one.
Yeah, I have two. One is by Howard Schultz.
Okay.
So the name escapes me, but I was just looking at it the other day. But anyway, Howard talked about how he was denied for funding 142 times. Right?
And this is for everybody. This is Starbucks.
This is
Starbucks. For
Starbucks.
everybody that doesn't know.
This is Starbucks, you know.
Right. 142 times.
142
he didn't
times.
get, he said, they
Banks
told him no.
told him no. You know, you think about that.
Wow.
So that one, and then I think the other one is the carrot plan, where you focus on one product.
Okay.
You focus on one product and do that one product well. And I would tell you, I have a good story about that.
Yeah.
For me, when I started thinking about just focusing on socks, one day I was on base at Fort Sam Houston at the Classic store, going to pick up some bourbon, and I see this guy standing there. It looked like he didn't supposed to be there. He had on some jeans, black cowboy boots, nice black button down, and had his hair slicked back a little bit. And I said, all right, I'm a recruiter. I'm going to go talk to you.
Yeah, of course.
So I said, all right, you don't look like you're supposed to be here. I said, you got your two young ladies up here giving people little samples. Who are you and what do you do? He said, oh, my name is Mike Cameron. I created Devil River whiskey. I said,
oh, yeah. I know Devil's River.
Oh, yeah. And I said the same. He said, have you had it? I said, I never had. But I saw your sign on 281 that said, if your commute was so smooth.
Oh,
and then I said, I remember researching your company and know that you guys grabbed the water from the Devil's River to make it. He said, yeah. He said, so what do you do? So I kind of told him what I was doing, looking probably to do something different. He said, have you ever thought about doing one thing? I said, what do you mean?
So this was before you had started your company. This is all before. Okay, keep going. Yeah.
He said, have you ever thought about doing one thing? I'm like, what do you mean? He said, well, just follow me here. And this is when the wheels started falling off. He said, all right, one day I was over at George Strait's house and Coach Pop was there. And then, and then Tito came over. He said, "You know Tito, right?"
Oh my god!
I said, "I've heard of him. I know his product, but I don't know." He said, "Yeah, he's from San Antonio. Went to UT. Tito." I said, "Okay, yeah,
Alamo Heights guy.
I know Tito."
Yep.
He said, "But anyway, George was getting ready to start a spirits company, and we all looked at Tito and asked him, why don't you do different flavors with your vodka, right?"
Yeah.
And he said, Tito. He said, and this was in 2019, Tito looked us dead in our eyes and said, "Guys, I just got offered $5 billion for my company. I don't need to put anything in it. I just need to do one thing."
One thing.
And of course, it's probably worth $12 billion now, I think, when I last looked.
My God.
It got the COVID bump. But
wow.
But yeah. So
that's a good story.
One thing.
Do one thing.
That's
and that's from the book called The Carrot. I mean, it kind of coincides with that. What was the book called again?
The Carrot Plan.
The Carrot Plan. I had not heard of that one.
Yeah.
I need to read that one.
Very cool.
Do one thing and do it really well. I love that. And biggest mentor in your life, you feel like? Biggest impact?
Yeah, Becky Valtier from the Naval Academy.
Okay, yeah.
She, our relationship, it continued after she helped me get into the program when we were both at Atlanta. So when I got commissioned from Auburn, I called her down to be my commissioning officer.
Oh, wow.
So she came down and gave me an oath, and that was really cool. When I was in Japan, I was getting ready to head over to Naval Post Grad School in Monterey, beautiful Monterey, California.
Yeah. And
she calls me and says, "Hey, I need an XO. I need help. Can you come?"
Yeah.
I'm there. So turned down Monterey to go to the Naval Academy and help her out. And so when she retired, I was her master's of ceremony.
Oh,
right?
Wow.
And then fast forward, that was in 2007, right before I came to San Antonio. Fast forward, when I retired in 2012, she was my guest speaker.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Wow. It's interesting, you have people that have had that kind of impact on your life, because do you think that you may not have gone to officer school without that?
I truly believe, because
you probably wouldn't have.
She was the only one that believed in me.
Yeah.
I didn't even believe in myself.
Wow.
And she said, "Okay, let's go."
Let's go.
And she would, I would give her my papers. She would read it. She would give me feedback on it. It was most amazing generosity and just kindness and just, you can do it, Anthony.
Yeah.
You can do it. And here we are.
Here you are. I love that story. And so to wrap this up, talk about, the mission in terms of the service, right? Like serving athletes, serving young athletes. Talk about that mission for STZY. Like how can people be a part of that? How can people help out? And where is some of that funding going, and how do y'all direct it?
Yeah. So right now, our mission is to help young athletes reach their goals, dreams, and aspirations. So we do that by sponsoring events. We will sponsor events with socks. So for those young athletes that probably hasn't worn a high quality pair of socks, this is going to give them that unique opportunity to feel what the Dame Lillards of the world are feeling when they're wearing that unique sock. Also, we've been able to sponsor athletes that are looking to go to a camp. Maybe they couldn't swing the price for the camp, so we were able to sponsor athletes back in Hawaii last year, which was really cool.
Nice.
About 5 athletes that couldn't afford the funding, and plus they got a STZY care package of socks. And so now one of the things that we're looking at is doing more here in San Antonio, with San Antonio Sports and with iPlay. Where we can give good quality socks to young folks. So we're hoping to do some type of event for back to school for folks to be able to get some good quality socks for a back to school event.
Yep.
And being able to partner with some of our unique athletes here in San Antonio that are building their career as maybe a San Antonio Spur or maybe on the soccer team, and just really figuring out how we can do this together, because I think when you look at the mission of STZY, people love athletics.
They love it.
People love their football, basketball, baseball. And I think with us, because we have an athletic sock, we're able to intersect in so many different sports. But at the end of the day, I truly believe sports provide determination, confidence, teamwork, a lot of those things that I learned in the Navy, learned in the military.
Yep.
But I think sports bring all those in as well, and plus it helps you as an adult when you continue to grow.
Yep.
So again, I want the mission of STZY, the product equals purpose, mission driven of STZY, to help those young athletes understand that we want to be there for them. We want to help them. We want to say we're proud of you.
Yeah.
We want to say that we're proud of you, right?
Yep.
I don't care if you have gotten a full ride to UT. I want to let you know I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
I'm proud and I want you to be a good person.
Yeah.
So if we're able to provide mentorship in somehow, some way, let's do that. If we're able to provide a quick speaker series with one of these athletes that have made it to that level.
Yeah.
Because the one thing I've realized is every athlete, especially every elite athlete, has all carried their own cross somehow, some way.
Yo, for sure.
They've been through it somehow, some
Yep.
way. Just like an entrepreneur has been through it somehow, some way. Let's figure out how to intersect those, share that knowledge, share the story, and let young folks know that, man, I can do it too.
That's right.
And I can still be a good person doing it.
At the same time. Well, listen, man, this has been an amazing conversation, Anthony. I really appreciate you being on TM3 Impact, and I can't wait to get this out. We'll probably have this out today, and I'm excited to get this out so people can know more about. So how do they find you? What's the easiest way to find your company online?
Yeah, just go to www.STZY footwear.com.
STZYfootwear.com.
And they will
Excellent.
find us.
And then on Instagram?
On Instagram at STZY Socks.
At STZY Socks. Okay, very cool. And if you you got to look at the Instagram, because your Instagram is fire. It's really, really well done. Like the photos, everything that you do, it's really, really well done and executed really, really well. So thank you so much for being on TM3, Anthony. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me, Tomas.
Right.
I've enjoyed it. Thank you. God bless.
Yes, God bless. Take care, my friend.